My name is Frank Martinez. I'm a professor at the University of Miami School of Architecture, and also have a practice in Miami along with my partner and wife, Ana Alvarez. I came to architecture in a sort of normal way, I suppose. When I was a child, I had some friends and neighbors that had interest in this, and that simply I held on to it a bit, and so when I entered the School of Architecture, it was a very new experience for me, but something that I became very passionate about right away. Well, for me, it was my apprenticeship that really was about learning, or an introduction to the idea of placemaking, the importance of understanding local culture, local climate, local geography. I mean, everything that really encompasses this notion of how human beings work within their built environment, or how they understand their built environment. For me, very early on, became always connected to place. So it was really, for me, a bit of the way that I was introduced into the world of architecture. And in teaching, I also just thought it was so important to look at architecture very closely, but not architecture devoid of its contents, not architecture as just pure theory, but architecture as something that is linked to the way human beings live, to their hopes and aspirations that are always connected to the physical environment. So place was always very important. So when I was studying in higher education, I wanted to focus in all of my history courses asking these questions about why architects made the decisions that they did. How were architects really connected to the places where they did their work? And I was very happy to see in really, and my experience now, all of the greatest architects throughout history have this very rich and deep understanding of where it is that they're doing their work and how they shape the built environment. The idea of drawing in architecture is very important. So first and foremost, it's an understanding of that we're drawing to learn, we're drawing to communicate. Drawing is the language of architecture, as well as urban design. So drawing is about thinking. It's a way of expressing oneself, and I think there's something very beautiful in that. But if I have to summarize, it's the thinking that comes through drawing that's most important. We need to teach ourselves to see, to understand, in order to really grasp, comprehend, and to make the world of architecture, the world of understanding space, somehow we need to be able to capture that, make it our own. It becomes part of the knowledge base that we use in order to design. So if one doesn't engage the language of architecture in that kind of physical way, to be very blunt, I find it very difficult. Now, as a teacher, and I really began my teaching career, if anything, with a focus on drawing, I've been able to experience firsthand the way that students, the way that we architects are able to see and discover through the act of drawing. So it's fundamental to establishing both a connection to the past and how one can, in a very thoughtful way, make designs that have meaning. In a summer program like ours, there's really two kinds of drawings that we make. Number one, and we do this in our first week, it's the drawings where we're looking at urban space, we're looking at buildings, and we're trying to understand, see, discover. So the drawings are all about understanding that built reality that we're looking at. The second part of the program, the second week, it's about engaging in small projects where we think, working as architects, what would we do to design something that is good, useful, thoughtful for the place. In that case, it's wonderful to see how students begin to make drawings to communicate their ideas, first and foremost. And it's important to listen to both the spoken word, but more importantly, to look at the drawings that they're making. And my approach is always to actually then draw for them, to show them whatever my thoughts or ideas are based on their work, or maybe where their work should be going. But it's always very important that our communication is primarily and most importantly using the language of drawing. And I do think that students are incredibly receptive to that. And it's as the world of understanding architecture really begins to open up when we can talk through drawing. And so this idea of visual expression is very important, and it can only help as they continue their studies in architecture to be able to expand that kind of visual perception, that visual understanding into all forms of art and artistic principles. In teaching, I think it's fundamental to expose students to very beautiful works of architecture, and it's always nice for me. My approach is always to ask, what is it that they're seeing? What is it that they find of great interest? And then I try to, in a sense, shape the lessons that I'm teaching around that. Now, that doesn't mean that I limit it to that. It's fundamentally important when looking at architecture with students to make very clear to them what are the important big ideas that one needs to look at in a work of architecture, starting fundamentally with the composition of a building. How is it that a building is composed? How is it that the work of architecture engages the human body? So this relationship of how humans perceive and understand buildings, meaning how they perceive and understand space, how the body moves through space, the notion of optical visual understanding. We as architects need to be very, very direct in knowing how it is that humans will use our buildings, but more importantly, how it will affect them emotionally, how it is that a building is able to help one understand the greater built environment. If we think of the way that we've organized this program, really over the last 11, 12 years, it's this idea of always visiting a new place and to discover the urbanism and the architecture of that place. What are the fundamental ideas that can really teach us about traditional urbanism and architecture? So we started, just to give a quick overview, we started with the program in Madrid. We did Madrid, Sevilla the following summer in Navarra, Then over to Portugal, Marvão, Cantabria, Barcelona, Arcos de Valdevez, and here we are in Ronda now. And for us, it's always this incredible sense of discovery. But more importantly, all of these places that we go to have a very unique and distinct approach to the urbanism, to its architecture. And so for us, we're able to search out, we're able to bring these fundamental, basic, and important principles to the participants of the studio. And we know that that important to this broad understanding that looks at culture, place, that we need to think about materials and methods of construction, the importance of artisans, the importance of understanding how human beings build, how they occupy space, how they make a place their own, down from basic survival to elevating to works of architecture that are made for the larger community as a whole. So always great lessons to be learned. The diversity is really spread throughout the program, and fundamental to this is that you get a group of people from many different places coming together in one place to focus on the work that we see there, the search for beauty and the search for learning of that specific place. And I think that this somehow is able to drive this idea forward in a very productive way, where there's an immediate understanding of what our goals and aspirations are.